Hey WordPress fans, thanks for joining us today. Sorry we got started a few moments late, but we're ready to rock and roll now. We're going to have an awesome webinar today. As you saw in the title, we're going to show you how a WordPress site can be hacked in 5 minutes. Actually going to hack one. It's going to be awesome, I promise you. But more importantly, the point in showing you this is to demonstrate that security can be WordPress's greatest weakness and greatest strength. If you keep your WordPress updated and if you set it up properly and if you utilize all the tips we're going to give you today, your WordPress site will be very secure and we will not be able to hack yours at all. So we're going to learn a lot of good tips today, and I just want to tell you how to do the Q&A here because we're going to have time for questions at the end. So if you have any questions at all throughout the presentation, certainly use the questions section. There's 2 ways you can communicate with us here in GoToWebinar. There's questions and chat. I prefer if you could submit your questions in the question area. It's a little easier for me to organize. So keep the questions flowing in there throughout the presentation, and I'll go through them and present them to Dre at the end, and we'll cover as many as we can. So, and before I forget, we're going to have a couple of very cool things for you at the end. I have a special offer related to WordPress security for all of the attendees, but we also have a prize. We're going to give away a security business plan, which is worth $289.99 and protects up to 10 websites. And the way that you can win this prize is to tweet out your favorite security tips that you hear from us in this session with hashtag WPSecurity. So again, that's hashtag WPSecurity. Tweet out your favorite tips, anything that we tell you that you find useful. Tweet it out with hashtag WPSecurity, and we'll choose one of those tweeters to win that business plan on security at the end. So with that, I'm going to introduce our guest today, special guest, Dre Armeda. He is the co-founder of Security, which is a company that I'm sure he'll mention a little more about, but basically provides some awesome security services for websites, including WordPress websites. You can scan your site for free. You can set your site up to be protected and actively scanned on a regular basis. They even perform cleanup for you if your site has been infected. So Security is an awesome organization. I met Dre at NMX earlier this year, New Media Expo in Las Vegas, and I was so impressed with his presentation that he gave there that I asked him if he would repeat it for us today, and he agreed, so I am grateful for that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dre. Take it away.
Holy cow! Well, Pam, thank you for having me on the broadcast here. I'm excited to chat about this. So we did meet at NMX. That was a great event. It was awesome meeting you, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.
Now,
thanks.
how have you been? How are things going on your end? World great?
Awesome here. Things are just going amazing. So couldn't be more grateful. Wonderful. And how about you?
Good stuff. Good stuff. I get to get out and speak about all these crazy security shenanigans that we got going on the web, latest trends in malware and all the fun stuff that we see in terms of attacks.
Yeah, I don't know how you keep up with it all.
Well, I've got a great team over at Security, Security.net, that does a lot of the research that you see kind of transformed into the cleanup and the monitoring that we do there. And so we get to kind of keep up with the latest trends, latest attacks. NBC.com was attacked here recently. There's been some pretty large-scale attacks over the last few weeks, and
really?
we put a lot of good content out on that. If you go over to blog.security.net, keep up with latest trends and attacks.
Cool. Yeah, I guess it's your job to keep up with that stuff. So you guys.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Well, cool. Without further ado, if you're ready to go, I'm ready to get started.
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Wonderful. Well, folks, my name's Dre Armeda. We're going to be talking a bit about real security for WordPress today. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of risk reduction, and that really is the name of the game. When it comes to security, there is no silver bullet. The person that tells you you're going to have 100% safe site and your risk is zero is probably lying to you, at least doing you a disservice. So the idea here is risk reduction. We're going to try to implement controls and real controls, right? Not fake or false sense of security to help reduce the risk of attack or infection, getting your site redirected to your favorite pharmaceutical company. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. All right.
Love those pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, they're good to go. So my name's Trey Armeda. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Security Inc. Security is a company that concentrates on malware detection, alerting, and cleanup for websites. So we'll come in and, yeah.
Sorry, I'll pause you for just a second. I don't think we're seeing the slide that you're on. Are you on your introducing yourself slide? Because we're still seeing the first one.
I'm not sure how. That's pretty interesting because it's the second one on mine, so I don't know if it froze.
Mm-hmm. We're seeing the summary of all the slides. So maybe if you click on that thing on the left on the second slide, we'll be able to see it.
Summary of the slides, huh?
Like I can see the 4 slides in the left bar in PowerPoint.
That's the main screen there. Not sure. Awesome. So what are you seeing right now?
Still seeing the first slide in the kind of summary area in PowerPoint.
Nothing? No change?
No.
About now?
No.
Great.
Hey, you know what? I have a copy of this, don't I?
Let's try
We
this.
can flip back and forth if you want. I can pull it up.
Yeah, we might have to do that if it doesn't come up.
While I'm pulling that up, I'm just going to let anybody know because a couple of people just joined us. We are actually giving away a security business package today to protect up to 10 websites. It's almost a $300 value. So all you have to do is once we dive into our presentation here, you just have to tweet out your favorite tips with hashtag WPSecurity, and then you will be eligible to win. We'll pick one of those tweeters to win that business package, which is a tremendous value. So let's just get our slide set, and we're going to go here. I'm going to see if I'm going to take the presentation back from you, Dre, and see if I can get the slides to share.
Sure. That's awesome.
Let's see, Microsoft PowerPoint. And I'm going to hit this and see if it just does it. Oops.
All right.
Are you seeing your bio now?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you. Well, my apologies for that, folks.
That's okay. Just let me know when I need to flip slides.
We're good for now. I'm gonna yap about my taco-loving self here for a second. I'm CEO and co-founder of Security Inc., folks. It's a company that concentrates on malware detection, alerting, and cleanup. So if your site is infected with malware, we'll clean that up for you. And then we monitor it for the year. So if anything comes up, we'll send you a nice email or an SMS message, and then we'll go in and clean that up for you. I've been around the WordPress community since 2004. I was the core organizer for WordCamp San Diego 2011 and 2012. In fact, I'll be speaking there here in a few weeks, which it's being held the 23rd and 24th. WordPress in general gets a bad rap in terms of security. We'll talk about that a little bit, but yeah, I've been around it and part of the security piece to that since again right around 2004. All right, you can go ahead and shift on up. So when we start talking about security and its importance, I think it's good to give a great background in terms of the internet and how it's growing and how it's sparked just amazing innovation. As it's been adopted, we've seen the way that we communicate, the way that we pass media, or even emergency information and communications change for the good. There's over 2 billion internet users today, and that's a growing number. That's 480% growth in the last 10 to 11 years. Now we're seeing that actually still grow, so it's moving at a pretty fast pace still today. One of the biggest numbers that I look at in terms of new websites coming on board is there's about 100,000 new domains that are gained weekly onto the internet. So of course some drop off and expire, and then there's a bunch that are purchased. but 100,000 weekly. I mean, that's a pretty significant number when you look at in terms of the amount of websites that we have active today and how quickly the internet is growing. Tony Snyder, the CEO of Automatic, which runs WordPress.com and was founded by Matt Mullenweg, who is the creator of WordPress, said last year that it's projected to be somewhere around 2 billion active websites by the year 2015. Today, there's over 800 million active websites, so that gives you a good indicator of where we're going and how quickly it's growing, and the type of neat things that we get to get involved with and cool tools we get to use. Now, when you look at WordPress in that whole ecosystem, in terms of the internet and how fast it's growing, it holds between 17 and 18% of market share on active websites on the internet today. So it's got a pretty big footprint. In fact, the biggest footprint around any open source content management system out there today. And in fact, it's close to 60% of all active websites running a content management system on the internet. So that's a pretty large amount of websites that are active today running WordPress. You can go to the next.
So just to clarify, because we had a question a minute away, that 2 billion sites is the total number of websites, all kinds of websites expected by 2015, right? And the percentage of that you, or the percentage of all websites right now that is WordPress is, what did you say, 17 or 18%?
WordPress right now runs close to 18% of all active websites on the internet.
Of all active websites, of which now there are about 800 million, but expected to be 2 billion in 2015. And I'm sure that WordPress's market share is going to grow beyond 18% by then, right?
Well, you're seeing about it's going up 2 to 3% per year switching to WordPress, right? Or the actual market it's growing 2 to 3% a year.
Wow, that's going to be a whole lot of WordPress websites. That is a whole lot of WordPress websites now, but it's going to be even more.
Indeed. Yeah, so it's a growing affair, and we quickly need to understand ways to minimize the risk of those being attacked. Just like when you look at Microsoft, the Microsoft Apple discussion and market share there, which Microsoft for years dwarfed Apple, and rightfully so, because they really pushed into the enterprise market and running all desktops and all the servers there in large environments. Well, it became a highly attacked platform, being that its sheer footprint made a lot of sense to attack in numbers, attack in bulk versus targeting, something that's not going to have as large of reach, right? So you're seeing the same thing with WordPress, folks. This is most of these attacks that you see are automated, they're opportunistic, and they're looking for the quickest way to attack the most people. That's how they make the most money. So that's really why we need to concentrate on being better around our security posture. Now, with that and the growth and innovation that we're seeing and the brilliant projections that we just talked about, it's not all peachy, right? With innovation, innovative thinking, there's risk that comes with that. So we see a lot of malware. What is malware? Malware is malicious software, or short for malicious software. It's designed to disrupt operations or gather info or gain unauthorized access, basically to do something that you did not intend when it attacks your website, right? Why do they do it? Well, they want to monitor your website browsing. They want to get into data and statistics. What are these numbers that I can use to better expand my attack? How can I attack more folks? Well, I'm going to attack certain folks to get as much info as I can to start pushing forward and building my campaign and making it as effective as possible. Just like we want to get our SEO up to speed and making sure that we're hitting and maximizing the amount of people that are seeing our brand or our product and so on. Well, attackers are trying to do the same thing, but they just do it in a more nefarious direction, right? Well, it's all money behind it. It's driven by monetary gain. So they're trying to force advertisements, and they're trying to redirect a lot of the users to gain affiliate marketing revenue. And we'll get into that a little bit as we talk about the pharmaceutical hacks, pharma hack, and some of the iframe and link injections that we see that redirect folks to bad stuff. It's all for the money.
It's good that you covered that, because I've had people ask me, why would someone want to hack a website? Do they do it just for fun? Is it some teenager sitting in his parents' basement just hacking stuff for fun? Or I tell them that it's usually for some kind of, like you said, monetary gain. They're doing something to your site that's going to get them money in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. So, your cupcake website is probably really cool, and the icing that you talk about in your recipes are delicious. But I don't think an attacker really cares about that. There's no real major gain for them. A high percentage or the majority percentage of the sites that are attacked due to some type of known vulnerability or something that's easily exploitable. They want the easiest entry point. It's definitely not anything personal. It's opportunistic, and most of the time it's an automated attack.
Mm.
Well, how bad is it? It's pretty bad. We're talking 2 million plus new malware strings monthly. Now, doesn't mean brand new malware strings. That means variations of existing stuff out there. So as soon as the good guys catch up and start to patch what they're doing, they find a new way to kind of variate that enough to get in and attack again. So the projections look at, and coming from Consumer Reports, that it costs the U.S. consumer over $2 billion yearly, and I'm talking outages, brand issues, when all of a sudden your favorite shoe company's got the blacklist warning, right? I'm not going to go buy them. I'll go to the competitor. And overall, the aftermath of an attack has cost the consumer about $2 billion, or it costs them $2 billion yearly. Here's a neat one. I know most of us have seen that pretty red warning that Google put out when they blacklist the site. Did you know that they blacklist about 10,000 websites daily?
Wow.
They issue over 3 million warnings daily. So that's people visiting sites with these blacklist warnings. That's emails that they send out to warn of activities. That is actual links to information around potentially harmful sites that they'll actually link to sites that they find to be potentially damaging to visitors in the search engine results. So they put out about 3 million warnings a day, and they blacklist on average about 10,000 new websites a day.
Wow, that is enormous.
Yeah, it's and growing, right? So about a year ago, they were averaging between 8,000 and 9,000, and they're up to about 10,000 websites a day. So the reality is we need to figure out kind of how this is happening, right? So we can put those controls in place. We can blindly put stuff in place, and that's really not going to be very effective. So how does this stuff happening? Well, I'll tell you from a security standpoint, we clean up between 300 to 500 websites a day that are infected with malware, that have a blacklist warning, have some type of security anomaly, what have you. That's just us.
300 to 500 a day?
A day, and I'll tell you, we're a small, nimble company, so it's a big market in the world that we live in terms of cleaning websites and so on. Again, we talked about 800 million active websites today. There's a few companies doing it. We're dropping the bucket. So to say that is a majority, that'd be lying to you. But what I will tell you, that over 75 to 80% of the cases that we see infected or reinfected is due to some type of outdated software. Now, that's independent of WordPress specifically, but we're going to harp on this a bit because it's important to understand that one of the biggest risk reduction things that you can do is proper software management in terms of updating and keeping all of your stuff up to date when patches come out. Reason for that is, well, we're not only adding features and really cool doodads and widgets and all that fun stuff while we release new software. We're patching bugs, and we're releasing security updates because something might have been discovered, might have been disclosed, some issue that can cause you, a lot of harm, and that's being rolled into these software updates. And oftentimes people are like, well, I don't want to really deal with that, or it breaks my website, or what have you, whatever the reason may be, and they don't update. So if we know that it's got known vulnerability, guess what? WordPress and all these other cool platforms like Joomla and so on are all open source. So what happens when we release these patches? They're publicized, and the actual code that is changed and fixed, and the reason it was fixed is publicized and listed. Okay, the attackers know that this is going on as well. So what do? They go find these things. They automate attacks, or they automate scans to go find these vulnerabilities on active sites on the internet. And when they find them, they don't even know who they're attacking. They see the vulnerability through their software. Awesome. It goes in and injects a payload, and next thing you know, your website's infected. And it was because you didn't update, and there was a known vulnerability there the attacker exploited. It's imperative that you have some type of updating sequence. If you're a WordPress user, that's exciting because there's a pretty simple upgrade capability built right into the dashboard where you can come in and click at one button, it's upgrading for you. Now, the issue that we run into is people say, hey, my website exploded. It's like, oh no, what do I do next? And we'll get into that as we get into kind of the top 5 steps and tips that I really want to leave you with today. The second real major direction that attackers head is exploited passwords. Not just FTP, but we're talking WordPress, we're talking FTP, we're talking SSH, even your control panels. They're going to automate attacks against these things. There's things called word lists, and what these word lists are have millions and millions of known and not very unique passwords that have been used on other websites that have been exploited. And they compile all these lists, and you can get them pretty much anywhere. And then what they do is they automate attacks and brute force attacks against these passwords until they're able to get in. So we'll talk to the importance of that as well a little later in the discussion, and that is actually what we're going to demo today, is how trivial it is to hack a website that's using poor credentials and not implementing controls to minimize people trying to brute force your site. Number 3 and 4. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
That there, I'll go backwards. But I never thought about that when an update is released on a software like WordPress, that's actually like a notification to hackers. Like, hey, look, we found a vulnerability. This is what you can do to get into us. You know, I never thought about it that way. That's kind of it pings the hackers to be like, hey, look, there's something new you can do.
It's well, and here's the deal. At the end of the day, we have to announce these things, right? Because what happens if I write a plugin or I have a theme that's affected by that? I need to understand that code so I can properly patch and upgrade that to match the new requirements on the patch that comes out from the core software, right? So if you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You have to put this info out. The attackers are waiting on this stuff. The important thing for us to understand is that as end users, we need to go ahead and upgrade and update this stuff as quickly as possible. That's what's really going to minimize the risk of attack. Now, hosting issues. We've seen them in the past, right? GoDaddies of the world and all these fun, awesome, hosting providers, which really try to do a pretty good job of keeping their environment secure. But it happens. Just like it happens on your website, it can happen at the hosting level as well. But as you see, that's lower down on the list. We don't see as many problems at that level, although they do occur, as we do see with passwords and outdated software at the application level or the end user environment level. The last one that I want to talk about is zero-day exploits. And what zero-day means, it's a new type of malware, a new type of attack that's just come out. It's attacking in the wild, but there is no patch for it. Okay, these do happen, but not as often, and they're not as widespread because patches are typically put out pretty quickly. But they do. There are instances where they can attack in bulk. A couple of years ago, we ran into some issues with a script named TimThumb. And what TimThumb was, or still is actually, is a script that allows you to manipulate images from the server using PHP. And it's pretty cool because it allows you to resize images and do all sorts of fun stuff. The challenge was that it had a bug in it that allowed anybody from the outside, if you had it installed on your server, to arbitrarily execute PHP without you knowing. And the next thing you know, they've attacked every single website on your server. There was no patch right away, so it was very challenging for security researchers and firms like mine to come in and patch it because we didn't understand what that vector, what that issue was. But it was soon thereafter patched and so on. So it allowed exploitation of a lot of folks. Again, this is something that doesn't happen as often in terms of it being a large exploit because they're patched quickly, but 0 days do occur quite often. Remember, we talked about there's a couple million new malware strings monthly, so those are things that need to be patched, and they need to be deployed out into the wild so that folks have ways to upgrade their stuff. So where does that leave you? Well, it leaves you at the understanding that the percentage of risk will never be 0. Again, there is no silver bullet. The idea is to implement controls. The idea is to minimize risk. Now, think about the dodo bird. How long has it been extinct? Probably a long time, right? But there is active DNA strands out there for the dodo bird. I swear you can look this up. It's hilarious. Now, does that mean that the dodo bird is going to be reintroduced into the world? Maybe not, but the percentage of risk still exists. Not that it's a bad thing or a good thing. We won't get into those politics, but I'll tell you that there is still the opportunity for them to be reintroduced, right? So the percentage of risk will never be 0 there. Same thing applies here when you're talking WordPress security. You need to do your best to minimize risk, but it's always going to be there. There's an inherent risk with having a website online. That's just the reality. We've got to do the appropriate things to consider that, right? There we go.
That's an awesome analogy. Love it.
I like dodo birds. I don't know. I got nothing. Well, what can we do? Well, we're going to be smart about this. We're going to learn a bit, and we're going to implement these controls. We're going to be consistent with those, and we're going to cut out all the dang noise. There is a lot of noise when it comes to security. You've probably asked it. I've heard it 100 times for sure. Hey, what plugins should I install? And what do what plugins should I do for this? And all these fun little things that people talk about, and in reality, half of them don't do a lick for you. What do? They give you that false sense of security, and you end up getting hacked anyways. So let's cut through the noise. Let's talk about the main tips and the main things that you need to do today to put you in a better security position and raise your security posture, lower your risk for it. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. The first one is that outdated piece. We're going to talk about updating stuff. We're going to talk about no soup kitchen servers. I know you guys and gals know the Seinfeld episode. This was actually coined by our COO, Tony Perez, who talks about all the clutter that we find in some of the environments that we're in. It's crazy to see. So we'll talk about having all that stuff removed and no soup kitchen servers. We're going to reduce access because not everybody needs admin access, and we see that a lot. Lastly, we'll talk about password management, and right before we go into that section is when we'll do the demo to show you how important it is to really have a unique and strong password. And lastly, but just as important, is a backup schedule. If you don't have a backup schedule implemented now, you need to get a sequence implemented ASAP. Because at the end of the day, all of these other fun pieces are just risk reduction rules, but when some type of catastrophic event happens and your site is blown up, or it's serving Viagra ads, or it's got the latest awesome flag from some country you don't know because you've been defaced, you need to replace those files. And if you don't have backups, you're in a really poor position. Those are at a high level the things that we need to consider. First and foremost, and always going to be the most important piece you need to consider, is updating your software. That doesn't mean just WordPress and your main WordPress instance. That means all WordPress, all Joomla, all anything that's installed on your server. So if you've got 10 websites, a staging environment, you've got customer sites, if they're all on the same shared host, and one of them down the line is running WordPress 2.8, for example, every single site that you have on that server is at risk of being infected with what's called cross-contamination, because they're all installed with the same user. So what ends up happening essentially is the attackers know that if I attack this one, we can start looking to see what other files and websites and all these cool directories and fun stuff we have there, and they'll start attacking all of them. So it's important to keep everything up to date. Now, this is the leading cause for infection, along with passwords that we see. Collectively, they make up between 85 and 90% of all of the attacks that we see, or in terms of the cleanups that we see with infections and reinfections. We hear often, well, look, I'd love to upgrade, but my website's going to blow up. Last time I did this, holy cow, my whole theme just went blank, or my plugin stopped working. Well, here's quick and dirty what I recommend you do. If your developer is telling you not to upgrade for security, your security stuff, or not to upgrade because their plugin or theme that they developed for you is going to break, you need to find a new developer. Period. Because what they're not doing is they're not giving you an easy upgrade path, and they're putting your business and your clients and your visitors at high risk. That's not appropriate and not acceptable. Okay, they need to be sure to be using best practices, which is set out in WordPress specifically on WordPress.org. There's best standards and best practices for how to code, and if they're sticking to the proper APIs and the standards set out by WordPress, stuff's not going to break. You're going to be in a better position to upgrade more quickly. You're going to be in a better position for stuff not to explode, and at the end of the day, you're going to reduce the risk of your customers, clients, visitors being at risk. Now, one of the things you can do to minimize the risk even more in terms of upgrading and stuff not breaking is set up a development environment. So if you've got myawesomewebsite.com, why not set up development.myawesomewebsite.com? And you can copy all of the files over from your production environment over to that development setup. You can copy the database as well and install a complete replica on the development environment. And from there, do your upgrades there. So the moment you upgrade, you can see, wow, nothing broke, awesome. I'm probably pretty safe to go ahead and do the upgrade in production with minimal risk of things breaking. Now, if something breaks, you're able to go ahead and patch that or fix it and figure out what the issue is so that when you do go do it in production, you already have a good upgrade path and you understand the things that may happen along the way so that you can minimize any downtime or issue with your site going down. That's a more appropriate way to go and do any update, whether it's on the actual core software for the application that you're running or any of the plugins and extensions and so on, themes and so on that you might have plugged into the site. Same thing applies to those as well.
Sorry, I was going to say the 3 tip. If you're afraid of breaking your website, then update a copy of your website first to make sure it won't break.
That's it. If you do that in development and on a secondary site, you won't take down the main site. Absolutely. So for WordPress users, there's a difference between a major and a point release, and we talked a bit about that a minute ago in terms of not adding new functionality, but it's more of a security patch or a bug fix. So when you see something like WordPress 3.5, WordPress 3.6, 4.0 down the road, those are all major releases. So you're going to have a lot of functionality added, UI changes, new developer tools, functions, hooks, things like that added to the software. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be maintenance patches and security stuff there, but the main emphasis on those major releases is functionality, adding new widgets and doodads, right? A point release, when you look at the current version that we're on of WordPress now, which is 3.5.1, point 2 to follow, point 3, and so on, those are point releases. And those are typically lower risk of breaking stuff because what those are patching bugs and fixing security issues. And that's what they concentrate on. You will not see any major widgets and doodads or functionality added to point releases like 3.5.1. We talked a bit about running upgrade tests. Do it in development before you do it in production. You minimize issues that way, and it gives you a good idea what may break along the way when you go to upgrade. And lastly, do your homework, because if it's, let's say it's a premium or a commercial theme or plugin that you're using and that's what's causing you grief, you need to go back and check out the support function for that product that you may have purchased, right? How are they supporting that project? What is their security stance? If they're saying, no, don't upgrade, you might want to find a suitable alternative. There's plenty of options when it comes to WordPress themes and plugins, right? There's not many plugins or many functionalities out there that don't have multiple solutions that you can research, vet, and see what works best for you. But you need to be considering the security piece from beginning to end. It needs to be a strategic approach. You shouldn't leave it till the last moment when you're being reactive because now, again, you're serving Viagra ads. All of these little things will make the difference in you getting infected or not.
Excellent tips. So
no soup for you.
No soup for you. You've got awesome tips here. I just want to make sure that we'll be able to cover the rest of them in about 20 minutes. That's possible, right? Along with your showing us your 5-minute hack.
Yeah. I can move quick. I can move quick.
Just making sure, just double checking. And in case anyone just joined us, FYI, giving away a almost $300 value, the security business package. So all you have to do to win that is tweet the tips we're giving you with hashtag WP Security. So go right ahead with what you were about to say, Dre. Sorry.
No worries at all. Moving quickly here. This goes along the same lines as the update piece, right? So I talked about Tim Thumb. It was a script that was sitting on the server and allowed PHP to arbitrarily execute. Well, people were disabling it from WordPress like, cool, I'm good to go. Well, no, you're not, because it's still sitting on the server, and attackers know this. And it doesn't need to be active on any application or software there, but if there's poor code with a vulnerability sitting on the server and they can scan for that, they're going to attack it. So the idea here behind a no-soup kitchen server is go ahead and remove anything off the server that you're not using. If it's an old website, get rid of it. If it's an old WordPress instance, plugins, themes, files, backups, and we'll talk about on the backups piece. This is not a storage server, folks. You have an active website, so you should not keep it there. Get rid of it all. This will limit the ability for cross-contamination and different websites getting infected because of the fact that you have a WordPress install that's 2 years old and you haven't updated and you forgot about it, okay? Get rid of it. Don't store it there. Anywhere you can segment. If you have your production website on XYZ server, set up another account for everything else. The more you segment, the less ability for something to attack one thing and affect everything. If it's not active, it's not good enough. Get rid of it. If it's not in use, make sure it's off the server.
Good point. I'm trying to, what did I do? There we go. Sorry, I had trouble flipping that slide. I got it now.
All right. So oftentimes you hear this is one of those false sense of security things. Hey, let's go ahead and remove the admin account from WordPress. Well, that's really not going to do much because you still have other admin accounts. And the idea was that people understand that the username is admin, so they know it's an admin role. But and you'll find out right now when I do the demo that it's very trivial for me to find all of the roles that and all of the users that are on your accounts. So it's not a big deal. The idea here is to concentrate on proper roles. If you're doing administrative functions like coming in and adding a new theme, a plugin, a widget, and so on, you're going to have to use your admin role. That's fine. Now, how many people do you really have the need to do that in your environment? Limit admin access to only a couple folks and make sure that they're using really strong passwords. Everybody else that's contributing content, editing content, things like that, ensure that they have the appropriate role for that. So like that, if their account gets exploited, they don't have access to come in and do all those fun things that attackers like to do. So the less admin accounts you have, the less risk of those being broken into, right? Because if you got 20, there's obviously more opportunities for attackers to attack all 20 versus 2. So use proper roles for the proper thing. If you're editing content, use an editor role. If you're using admin stuff, use an admin account. The same thing goes for WordPress, FTP, all your database stuff. If they don't need it, don't give them access. Not every user that comes in is going to need FTP access, so limit that to the people that need that to do their job. Give people enough access to do their job and nothing more. Remove that access when they complete it. This is called least privilege, folks. We want to go ahead and practice this, minimize access, and you're going to minimize risk. Lastly, you're going to want to use limit failed logins or some type of plugin to thwart brute force attacks, which is what I'm going to show you right now in the password attack that I'm going to do. If by doing that, you're putting yourself in a more favorable position. When people try to attack passwords and they're getting failed attempts, if you limit that, they won't be able to get in. Now, let's go ahead and do a quick demo. So I will need to figure out.
Okay, I'm going to pass this over to you so we can see your screen.
All right. So main screen. All right. So here is this. Can you see that website there?
Yes.
Kind of. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to.
The moment you've been.
What's that?
This is it, right? This is the live hack.
This is the live hack.
And obviously you're going to do this to your own site so that you don't get like arrested or something, right?
Yeah, getting arrested would not be awesome, but I'm having problems here with the. All right. So this is what we're going to do. Let's raise this. What I'm going to do right now is you see this awesome, I don't know how big the screen is for you folks.
Yeah, if you can make it a little bigger, that would be ideal. Oh, good. There you go. You're on the right track.
So what I'm going to do is, look, here's a website. It's a regular WordPress themed website, default theme. And the idea here is I want to be able to show you what people are doing. There's active scans going on every website that you see out there today. And what they're doing is they're coming and checking the WP admin, which is where you would go log in to WordPress, to see if they're using weak passwords. And these are called brute force attacks. They'll come in and use what's called the word list, which I'm going to show you here in a second. And what they're doing is they're trying to find all the usernames and then attach the password that they think would be in use. There's a cool software that was actually invented to actually scan networks of WordPress sites and stuff to see users and things like that. It's called WP Scan. And this software allows you to come in and scan websites to see usernames and things like that, right? So right now what I'm doing is I'm checking Armeda.com, which is the site that you see up here, to see what's going on with it. Now, I've checked it. I know that it's an active site. I want to come in and I want to check, see what usernames they have. Now, this would work across pretty much any site. And again, this is the use of good tools for bad reasons, and that's what these attackers do oftentimes. So what I'm doing now is that I'm running this software, and the software is actually checking for usernames. And as you can see, it dropped in, and it gave me, look at that, Batman is even a user on my site. it gave me a bunch of a bunch of usernames with the nicknames and the main name attached to the user ID for the site. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that now I have a full list of every single user there. Now, removing admin, it was irrelevant. There's no admin user here, a user named admin anyway. But it's safe to say in most cases that the first user in a WordPress account is an admin account. Why? Because that setup, it asks you to put in a username, right? And when you put in that username and move on, that's the first user, that's user ID 1. So now we've got Dre as a user. We're going to go ahead and use a password list now. Let me get this password list over. So here's a password list.
That's what we talked about before with all the common passwords.
Yeah, so all common passwords that may come up. Here's a very short one, but just to give you an idea. I've got some with like 6, 7, 8 million passwords in there. Okay, so this is a very short one. But what I'm going to do is now is I know that the username is Dre. I'm going to bounce the username off of this password list to see if any of the other passwords match. Okay. So you'll see here that I'm going to run WP scan against Armeda. Here's a word list that I got here for passwords, text, username Dre. Let's go ahead and enumerate. So what I'm doing right now, you don't see it, it's going to be looking at WP admin using the username Dre and bouncing each one of those passwords off of there until it finds one that matches. And you'll start seeing the brute force attack here. Server error. So it's trying, it's not working. It's trying, it's not working. So you're getting errors for every failed password attempt. And it's going through the list. All of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, we're gonna find something. Well, maybe it doesn't.
So what it's doing is you loaded up that list of passwords, and it already knows your username from the first step, so it's kind of trying to guess based upon that ginormous list of passwords what your password might be. And since it already knows your username, it's already halfway there. And then each time it's failing here, it's like, no, it's not that password. No, it's not that password. But at some point,
yeah, well, if it finds a match, it's gonna be awesome if it doesn't.
It's always the case.
Yeah, live demos are awesome.
If something can make a liar out of you, it would.
Yeah, indeed.
No, but I've seen you do this before. I know you know what you're doing. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't know that I know what I'm doing, but fair enough. Oh, come on. Yeah, and that's exactly what it's doing. It's coming through and it's checking all the passwords on the file list to see if it finds a match. And apparently it's not finding a match. What I was going to do was come in and deface the site, which is typically what they'll do. So they'll come in and they'll attack the site. When they find password, if they do, they'll come in and they'll change the password. They'll change the email address to your user, so that when you try to go reset your password, what it does is it sends the attempt over to them, and then you're not able to change it back.
Oh, wow. So not only do they get in, but they make sure that you then can't get back in.
That's exactly it. So, not sure what's going on
Right,
here. It's
so
still looking.
while it's churning, why don't I shoot you a couple questions that are coming in?
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, so a good question. Does the security stuff that you're talking about apply to sites hosted by WordPress themselves, or is it just self-hosted? Like, does it apply to blogs on WordPress.com that you sign up for?
Great question. So no, it does not. So security. Well, let me rephrase that. Security applies to everything that's online. Fortunately, with WordPress.com, that's one of the things that they manage for you. Is remember that's a commercial entity. That's not the free WordPress.org installation that you install on your own site. So they have a whole administrative staff that works on making sure that nothing explodes, that there's no security issues, and so on. So they're pretty stringent on in their security policies, so they minimize the amount stuff that you can upload, and all these cool things, right? So they're doing that for you. You're not going to have to worry about the same risks on WordPress.com that you would having your own WordPress.org installation.
Gotcha. Very good. Thanks for clearing that up. Question from Susie. Where did you get the password list that you used here?
Why, Susie? What is it that you plan on doing? I'm just wondering. No. Well, I'll tell you, there's these cool, you can go right online on Google and do some keyword searches, and you would find millions of passwords. So they're readily available and public to pretty much anybody.
Right. Susie did clarify. She was just wondering.
I was teasing.
But the point is that these password lists are readily available. You can just search for them and find them. So it's not like you don't have to be some, rocket scientist to get your hands on one of these.
Nope. You can find them right online. So what they end up doing is you see these big attacks, like LinkedIn was attacked last year. There's a few here recently. There's been a lot of them. And when they get these passwords, they post these password lists online. So what do attackers do? They grab those, and they use them for their purposes, right? Because there is a high chance that if you've used those passwords, and we haven't gotten to the password piece of the presentation, moving through it, if you use it on one, you probably use it on another platform. And that's one of the things about using a unique password. So let's say your password was one of the ones exploited on the LinkedIn breach last year. Well, attackers are going to go check those on Facebook, on WordPress, on everywhere else to see if you've used it elsewhere and attack your site. So that's why it's important to use different passwords across all your different platforms. If you use something on LinkedIn, you shouldn't use it anywhere else. This specifically applies to anything transactional. So you should not be using the same password on Facebook that you use for your bank. I'm just saying. If Facebook gets hacked and your password is put out there, I may go, do a little bit of data mining and find out what banks you may use, and I'm going to go try and log in as you. So make sure you're varying your passwords across all your different platforms.
That's good. I'm glad you explained that, because that's kind of a well-known theory that people hear all the time. You should use different passwords for different things, but I don't think people understand why, and you should explain why it's important to do that.
There was a gentleman from, I believe, Wired Magazine, and he wrote an article. We could probably get that in notes or something later. What ended up happening to the guy is someone on Twitter saw his Twitter handle and liked it. So he was like, I want to see if I can attack this guy. So started doing some minor data mining, figured out what his Apple ID email was, and figured out a couple other instrumental pieces of data for Amazon and a couple other accounts. Well, by making some phone calls and using the data that he found on some accounts to try to reset passwords on others, he was finally able to get into Apple, to his Apple ID, reset the password, log in, and remotely wipe all of his computers. So his iMac, his MacBook Pro, his 2 iPads, all of his stuff was completely deleted. Well, with that, he was able to obtain data for other sources, so his PayPal account, Twitter, Facebook, and he changed all of the passwords for everything. So not only did he hack pretty much every social piece that he was involved with, he completely deleted everything off of every single device that he had attached to his Apple account. Now, reason for that is because the guy wasn't being very careful in terms of the information that he was putting out there, the type of passwords that he was using across all of his platforms. So it's imperative that you make sure that you're using long, unique passwords across all of your platforms.
Wow, yeah, I remember hearing that in the news. That was an extreme case, but wow, sure. It can happen.
In terms of passwords, actually, can you bring up the presentation? I want to get through the password stuff real quickly.
Yeah, sure. Real quick, while we're still looking at this log here, great question from Lynn. She would like to know if there's a way to view a log of these server errors. So is there a way to view this log on your own site to see if someone's trying to do this to you?
Yeah, so it's going to vary by host, but your access log should be able to grab all of this. Now, another thing that you can minimize this from happening altogether. If you're running WordPress, there's a couple different plugins, and actually I have them listed out here on the slides, that you can use to minimize the ability for an attacker to come in and try to use brute force. So they'll never even get this far. It'll be 2, 3, 4, however many failed attempts, and then they'll be locked out. Their whole IP address would be banned from trying to log in again. But access logs, in short, most hosting providers will allow you to have access logs, which should show all of these failed attempts.
Okay, so that's from your hosting company, your GoDaddy or your Network Solutions or whoever
Right.
you use.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. Great question. Great answer.
Absolutely,
okay, can
great question.
you see the slide? I
Yes.
got to get to the right one. The password management. That's where we're at, right?
Password management, yeah. So moving through this real quickly, we talked about using unique passwords. So try to do something long. Like for me, I'm a fan of Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. So 7 years ago, right? That's a pretty long phrase, and it'd be really challenging for you to remember or for someone to try to crack. If I come in and variate some numbers, some spaces, some special characters in there, you grab a Snickers bar. It's going to be a while. You're not going to be able to get in there and hack that very easily. So ensure that it's long and very unique, something that is not related to your favorite pet's name, your birthday, fun stuff like that. Use lyrics from a song, something very long and notable to you, something that you understand and will remember easily, but very challenging for someone to break into. Password is still one of the top 5 actively used passwords on the internet. Don't you think that attackers know that? We know that, they know that. Don't use it. Use something long and unique. And again, vary it across all your accounts. Now, one thing that I'm going to definitely recommend, I use it across all of my devices, is LastPass. It's a password management tool that allows you to create secure passwords, unique phrases. It allows you to mask them so you don't even need to know your passwords. You can cut and paste it into your favorite program. Again, it works across all your devices, whether it's Mac, Microsoft, iPhone, you name it, and you can cut and paste your passwords right into those accounts. You don't even need to know them. It'll manage it for you, and it's one less security issue you need to deal with.
What was the name of that?
LastPass, L-A-S-T Pass, P-A-S-S.
L-A-S-T-P-A-S-S.
Yeah. So they have a free version, and then you pay like $5 a year for their pro.
Cool. Good to know.
And lastly, the backup schedule. That was really it, Pam, on the schedule. If you don't have backups implemented for WordPress, your hosting provider typically provides some type of service. Now, the key thing to remember there is you don't want to store your backups on the same server as your website, right? Because if your website's exploited or it goes down, you may not have access, or your backups could get damaged. So keep those locally. Keep them in Dropbox somewhere else. Keep them away from your production environment. But you need to implement one today. So Backup Buddy is a cool tool. Definitely recommend checking them out. WordPress also offers a great solution for backups. There's a few other ones out there, and again, reach out to your host. They might have something that you can use. But implement something today, so like that in the event something explodes, you have a backup of your stuff.
All right, very good. So you want me to hand this back over to you and see what's going on with your hack there?
It's not going through, so I'm not sure what happened.
All right, well, we can see. Obviously, you demonstrated, how this works and what would happen. And so why don't you
could also see a recording of it over at YouTube/SecuritySec.
Oh, okay. YouTube/security. What was it again?
Sec, S-E-C.
Oh, okay, so youtube.com/SUCURISEC.
Correct. And there'll be a recording of the hack there using WP Scan. It's the same exact thing I was running through live there, so my apologies, folks. You can see it there and all the steps that we went through all the way until it's enumerating the passwords. And then the cool thing from there is you would see that password associated with the username. Then you go into WP Admin, actually use it. It authenticates. You can go in, we go in, and then you're able to see the defacement that happens thereafter.
All right, cool. So do you have any further steps you want to show us right now, or is that basically?
I think the last slide there was just some tips, some tools and stuff, which I've briefly talked about throughout the presentation.
Okay, cool. All right, so so if you want to see the tail end of the hack that you essentially saw most of, you can go to Security's YouTube channel. Any final questions, please submit them now. I think we have one. Oh, we do have a couple more I can get to here. So let's see. Let's try to breeze through some more questions. So earlier on, question came in. So malware includes cookies and data mining. When you were explaining malware, does that include cookies?
Malware is the actual payload. It's the software, right? So if they infect your website with some type of encoded snippets of JavaScript or PHP or what have you. That's the actual malware. Now, stealing cookies is a means to steal sessions and for them to be able to log into your site and things like that. So there are security risks, but that's not malware per se. It's another type of attack.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So back to the WordPress.com thing. Were you saying that if the site is hosted on WordPress.com, then you don't really need to back it up?
Right. So they have backups of all your stuff there. Now, the only time you would need, so it's not going to go away. Trust you me, in terms of the availability of your data on WordPress.com, it's going to be there. So the only thing that you would need there realistically is if you're going to move somewhere else, and you're going to pull all that data out to go, let's say, install your own instance and export. But short of that, there's no backups needed on WordPress.com.
Okay, gotcha. Good. Thanks for clarifying that. And another question: how do you feel about Dropbox for backing up individual blocks?
If you're just doing backups there, I don't see a problem with it at all. Yeah.
Okay.
I use Dropbox personally. In terms of any sensitive information, that's still, think of it as a hard drive in the cloud that's still susceptible to attacks. Someone gets your passwords, usernames, etc. So I like dual authentication. What we've done is we've created an encrypted layer around all of our data that sits on Dropbox that you need another login for. So if Dropbox gets hit with some type of a hack, all of our data is going to be encoded.
So if whatever you put on Dropbox has a password itself,
Indeed.
Then that's double secure.
You got it.
Good tip. And what do you recommend for software scan for malware? The question specifically asks about on a Mac. So basically, but to take it a step back, there's two different kinds of security scanning software. There's the kind for your PC or your Mac, your actual computer, and then there's the kind on your website, right?
Sure. Absolutely. So two very, very different things, and oftentimes completely associated. Now, think of what we do at Security as an antivirus for your website, right? It's a scanner that comes in and scans all of those files, just like an antivirus scans all the files on your desktop for known viruses. Very different things. So just because you have one doesn't mean you don't have the other one. You need to look at both. They will inherently reduce the risk of issue or at least long-term outage. For Mac, I use Kaspersky. I'm a fan of the Kaspersky product. That's a personal thing. There's a few other ones out there. But yeah, when you look at the desktop, there's also been the misunderstanding that Mac is secure and they won't get attacked. Well, no, you just don't see it as much. It gets back to that whole market share discussion and footprint, right? I'm going to attack Microsoft versus Mac because it was just a larger footprint. Doesn't mean that there isn't attacks that will exploit Mac. Lately, Java in general has had a lot of breaches and a lot of zero-day attacks, and that affects any platform. So make sure that you're running some type of antivirus, but whether it's a Windows machine or a Mac machine locally, install something to ensure you're scanning all your files. For the web, for malware scanning, we have a free scanner at sitecheck.security.net, and that'll give you kind of a real time of where your site's at today. If you want to get monitoring, then we offer monitoring with all of our service plans, as well as cleanup in the event that you get infected with something.
All right, yeah, so obviously security is the choice for website scanning. And like you said, you can even scan it for free, right? So, but tell us what's the difference between your free scan and the service that people can sign up for.
Sure. So the free scan, what it's doing is just doing a real-time right now scan. It's not automated. It's only going to check a certain down to a certain level because we're not able to check all of your files on your server, right? It's a remote scan. So we're only going to be able to identify malware that is presented when we check the site and anything linked to the site. So when you look at WordPress specifically as an example, it's got a bunch of files in its core software that you're not going to see when you go to the page, right? You can look at the source code and those files don't come up. Well, just like visually you can't see that in a browser, our scanners can't see that. So the only way to really identify and understand if any of those files are affected are to be scanning from the server. Our service includes remote scanning at intervals, so it is automated and will scan at 6, 12, or 24-hour intervals by default. but you can also enable server-side scanning where you drop a small file that communicates to our scanners onto your website, and then we're able to check each individual file directly for malware, security problems, backdoors, and so on, and report that to you. When we report that to you, we report it via email, we can report it via text message, even Twitter direct messages if you wanted to, and it'll let you know, hey, you've got XYZ problem going on, you need to take action. And that'll enable you to come back into our system and request for us to come clean it up, and the support team will go in and clean that out for you.
Nice, nice. Very good. So that's a good segue into our wrap-up and our giveaway. Like I said, for people who were awesome enough to tweet out tips from this webinar with hashtag WPSecurity, we're going to randomly select one of those to win a security business package, which will do that deeper level of monitoring and active monitoring for up to 10 websites. And for those of you who just have one website and would like to take advantage of the security aspects that security provides, as well as other features like automatic backups and getting your updates done for you and getting some site alerts, I have an offer too. And I'm actually going to flip to show my screen now so that I can show you where to redeem that offer. This is for everybody. This is not one that you have to win. This is just at panmanmarketing.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see my new Panman WordPress plan, which is, like I said, it's a package that includes the security scans. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. And also backups, updates, and alerts, all sorts of stuff to take care of your WordPress website, absolutely free for 3 months. So, and it's ridiculously low after that. But if you want to just try it out and kind of set it and forget it, not have to worry about any of this, get the benefits of security and more, you can just go to my site and sign up for 3 months of the Panman WordPress plan. It's a pretty good fit for people who just have one website. For people who have more than one website, any kind of developers, I highly recommend going to security for their business plan, because that's going to suit you much better. And real quick before we go ahead and give away one of those business plans, Dre, do you have any upcoming events that you're going to be at that you want to tell people about?
We have a couple. So yeah, I'll be at I'll personally be at WordCamp San Diego here on the 23rd and 24th. I'll actually be speaking there, giving a kind of more in-depth breakdown of some of the current attacks and things like that on Saturday the 23rd. And I'll actually be speaking about bootstrapping a business on Sunday. So it's the best of both worlds there. We also have WordCamp Miami coming up in early April, and then we'll be at HostingCon and WordCamp San Francisco, I think, is the next one after that. So we've got some upcoming events. If you go over to security.net under the company info link in the top bar, you'll see our upcoming events.
All right, cool. Good to know. And I'm going to go through real quick a couple of my upcoming events. I have a webinar next week, Facebook Basics for Business. I am actually a guest on another company's webinar for this, and it is, for them, it is a paid webinar, but for my fans, it's free. I'm linking you. I'm giving you the backdoor link here. So if you go to my website and go to the events page and sign up for this webinar, it is free for you. Then I also have a couple of in-person events coming up. I have a Lunch and Learn, a framework for winning SEO strategy in Sparta, New Jersey, next Friday. I'm also repeating that as a free webinar. So if you're not in New Jersey and you're interested in that topic, I am doing it as a webinar on March 18th. And I have another very cool in-person event coming up. I'm a panelist on the Morris County Chamber of Commerce's Women in Business event called Enhancing Your Online Image. Amazing, amazing people are going to be at that event. So it's a great networking opportunity as well as a great learning opportunity. So all those can be found in the events section of my webpage. But without further ado, since we're running a little bit over, let's go ahead and do the contest. So the random winner tweeter that tweeted out a good WordPress tip during this session that gets the almost $300 value security business package is Fifth Room. Fifth Room Creative, hashtag handle at Fifth Room. So congratulations, Fifth Room. You got that awesome prize from Security. Dre, how can they redeem that? How should they get in touch with you to redeem that?
Well, if they want to email you and you can forward it over to me, that'd be great. And then we'll,
okay.
we'll get them squared.
All right, cool. So Fifth Room email, me at pam@pamandmarketing.com, and I'll get you linked up with Dre to get that set up for you. So thank you, everyone, for attending. If you have any remaining questions that we didn't get to answer, certainly reach out to us. You can reach me on my website or on my Facebook or anywhere you look up Pam and Marketing, you'll find me. And Dre is pretty easy to find as well. What's your Twitter handle, Dre? It's at Dre Armeda, right? Or at Dre Meda?
Dremeda, D-R-E-M-E-D-A.
Okay, at Dre Meda. And or just look up security. They're very accessible, so they'd be happy to answer any of your questions. So
Absolutely.
hope to see you on the Facebook for Business webinar next week. Thank you, Dre, so much for your time. Thanks, attendees, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, Pam. Thank you.
Take care.